Hello. Good morning. Oh my God. Who do we have here?
Carly.
Carly? Who are you, Carly?
Carly, I am... What a question.
I'm going to take my coffee.
I like to coin myself an entrepreneur, a mother, millennial, writer, artist, creative,
I was hoping you were going to say that.
CEO. Poet. Thank you for reminding me.
A cheerleader? I like to call you a cheerleader.
Sure, yeah. Wayfinder.
Ooh.
I've been getting that a lot lately.
Oh,
I like that one.
That. Wayfinder. That's really good. Well, Carly, and all of the above, thank you so much for joining us for Yaki Coffee Chats.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know. Carly has been actually really instrumental for me recently, which we can talk a little bit about some of that stuff. But I'm really excited for Carly to be here. Carly is, you just have a lot of knowledge, and then she's just really good at articulating what that knowledge is. So I'm just very excited to learn from you today, actually. And for all of you to learn from her. And I thought, what's a very broad topic that I think most of us can resonate with? And I thought, anxiety. Anxiety. Mm-hmm. And this was sparked from talking to my therapist a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, about how, I've been kind of battling this thing where I'm like, I'm trying to get away. I'm just going to try to avoid my anxiety and just kind of work through it. And my therapist was like, you know what, Jackie, it's okay to have some anxiety because some of it actually is there to protect you. And I was like, So that's where that's the bouncing off point. So now, what do you think, Carly? Anxiety.
Well, I think that it does help to be aware of your anxiety. So I think that I've had it my whole life, especially in the Department of Social Anxiety. So I kind of coined it as being introverted or not liking people, not being, charismatic in conversation and things like that. I kind of just put myself in these boxes. And I started therapy just now a year ago. And through my kind of journey of many different discoveries, one of them was understanding, no, maybe you're actually very extroverted, but you have social anxiety, meaning you don't know how to show up in a certain environment with a certain person. I come from a broken family, and it wasn't a very cordial brokenness. There was zero co-parenting. There was zero conversation between parents. And I also had a stepfather figure from the age of 2. So very confusing identity-wise, and who am I talking to today and who am I calling dad today, because they were both dad. So kind of just figuring out how to show up and what environment am I in, what mask do I need to put on today, which Carly do I need to be or pretend to be, right? So it's a lot.
It's a lot. I was just going to say, that's a lot.
Yeah, and then I think also coming from corporate America, I worked in agencies for over 10 years before opening my own agency, and working under the dynamic of maybe a baby boomer or a male figure who doesn't necessarily understand my place in the world of work.
Yeah, right? It's called the world of work, yes.
Being forced to be like somebody else. The story I always like to compare it to is, there was a woman that I worked with who was highly valued in the space that we worked, and I was constantly told to be more like her and to mimic her and to mirror her actions and her way of working instead of showing up as myself. So constantly just being pulled in so many directions, being told who to be, all of these things. I'm sure there's more stuff that I will discover over time.
But so far,
that's what we have. That's what we're working with.
Okay.
And just kind of, once I was like, hey, this is actually social anxiety. I actually love talking with people. I love connecting with people. I love people,
She does. You do.
So, I think once I pinpointed that, I was able to really step over the bridge of it. And I think that that's a key component and something that I'm sure you kind of have discovered this in therapy as well, is once you pinpoint the issue or the challenge or the struggle, it's oh, okay, I'm fine.
You didn't know.
Like
right?
I'm on the other side of it
yes,
now.
Other
you
side
know?
Of it. Yes.
So
what does that feel like? This
such a relief. Yeah. The fact that I'm here right now is huge. I did get a little anxiety walking through the apartment complex.
But we made it all right.
I made it. Yes.
You made it. But
SOS.
So yeah, what do you mean? So you wouldn't be here right now? So what?
Oh, a year ago, I would have never taken this meeting with you. No,
what would have come up? Like you would have been.
I just wouldn't want to do it. It just would have been like, no, I'm just not going to do that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't want to like make any friends. I think it started. So I'm sure you've seen me talk about my friend Emily Jasminski.
Yes.
She is my videographer and website partner for my business. She owns a local marketing agency as well, and she is kind of one of the first people to break me out of my little social anxiety shell. She really pushed to be my friend, and I was kind of like staying in the DMs with her, and I was like keeping it really like
a bear,
safe.
Like a safe boundaries,
yeah. And she's like, let's get on a Zoom. Like, let's just have lunch together on a Zoom meeting. And I was so like nervous and uncomfortable, and I was like, I don't want to do this, you know? And then she was just like so easy to talk to, and I was like, this is fine, this is beautiful, this is great. We finally met in person. It was like so easy. And that was kind of during the time when I was like discovering all the stuff about myself and working through it and everything. So she was one of the first people where I really stepped out of my box. And I think too, like in lockdown, like I took advantage of that. Like I was like, nope, can't go, and I won't go. You know, like I'm like
taking advantage. You're like, oh well,
COVID, can't see you, COVID. Like I was like thriving on that. I was like, no.
Wow. And then just to see that this was the thing that actually ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you go to therapy? Because I'm guessing therapy played a part in where you are today, right? You've been there for almost a year. Mm-hmm. Like what sparked that?
So, you mentioned I was a poet. I did some writing course at a local junior college about 5 years ago, and I met a good friend of mine, Anna, who's also a beautiful writer and an artist. And she and I have been friends for years now, and she created a virtual women's group. Okay. And there's about 5 of us in the group, and we converse over Marco Polo.
Okay.
It's like a video app. It's like a very safe, protected video app, and we just kind of send videos and we encourage each other. Sometimes we have artist workshops and go over like projects we're working on and things like that. So one of the women in the group is a certified therapist and counselor. But she's kind of built her business as a feminine leadership coach. I did a live with her.
Was that the one?
Yeah, Cora.
Please. This live was amazing. So go to her page, check out this live. What's her name again?
Cora Darlington.
Yes. That's your straight up therapist.
Yeah.
She's good. She's good.
She's amazing. So she focuses on feminine energy. She focuses on bringing you out of burnout, adding more thrive to your life. And I came to her because at the time I was overworking. I was like in year 2 of my business. And I didn't have enough time for my son, he's 3, and my husband. And I just wanted to make more space. And I kind of came to her as like a business coach kind of thing. And then after our first meeting, she's like, there's a lot more going on here. Yeah. So we connected through this group, and then now we meet every other week. She's actually out of the UK, but we meet virtually. So cool. And she has become a very, very close friend and just beautiful mentor and woman in my life. She's like a huge, very, very important to me. And yeah, I just work with her, and I'll vent to her and say stuff, and then she'll pick stuff out and be like, let's talk about that. Let's go deeper in there. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that all started. And, I mean, I have just like stepped into a new realm of myself over the last year. It's pretty insane. And I think too, like owning my own business, and networking, it was like, lockdown. Okay. I don't have to go to events and I don't have to network. Great. I don't like doing that, and then now we're like out of that, and we're in a place where we're getting out there, and I'm like, okay, this is like the perfect time for me to be like, okay, let's battle this social anxiety. Let's meet people. Let's connect. Let's feel good around people, you know? So yeah, that's kind of where
and this
I'm
is
in right
perfect
now.
timing for you because now that you can go out, now you have the tools.
Yes, exactly.
So anxiety, like, I think for me, anxiety, you know, it's this. I do want to take a moment to like describe what it feels like to each of us because it can feel different for everyone. My anxiety kind of starts over here.
Okay,
like my tummy.
It's a gut thing.
It's a gut thing, and it sort of works its way up, and then it gets to my head, and I start to, you know, short breaths, you know, the breathing, and then I start to spiral. Like it's sort of this sort of thing, and now thanks to therapy and you know, and therapy isn't for everyone. I will say, like for me, that's what's worked. It's worked to really understand why I am the way I am, what is triggering these anxiety, anxious feelings.
Sure.
What does anxiety? How does it feel for you? In your body, in your mind.
So for social anxiety, because I have suffered from both like just regular anxiety and then social anxiety, but social anxiety for me was just avoidance, really, a negative self-talk. You know, you can't show up in that environment. You don't want to show up in that environment. You're not going to be happy in that environment. You're not going to be happy around that person, or they're not going to accept you, or they're not going to.
This is all going in your head? Like you're saying this to yourself?
Yeah, because I also come, you know, from corporate America. I was very, very undervalued the whole 10 years. Like I was always thrown in a corner, like given like can I say bitch?
Yeah, sure.
The bitch work. And kind of just, you know, I just never felt like I was a valuable asset to any team. There were moments where I felt valuable. I was given a couple opportunities to like produce photo shoots and stuff, and that made me feel really empowered to like lead something. But beyond that, like I was made, people would promise me like manager positions or editor positions, and then I would stay at these jobs and I would never get the opportunity. And so I blamed myself for that. And I think it's kind of a circle. It's like you blame yourself, then you don't perform, then you don't get the results. You know, it's kind of like I am to blame, but I'm not at the same time.
Right.
So that's the social anxiety is all just kind of like that negative self-talk.
May I stop you there? In having these moments when you're having this cyclical, you know, these thoughts.
Yeah.
At that time, because that's the other thing about anxiety and is, what do you think kept you from seeking support or seeking advice? Because a lot of the times that's what happens. I feel like we all just sort of, I like to say it this way. It's like having earphones and like people are giving you advice, but you have the earphones on and I'm like, I can feel the vibrations. Like I know you're saying something, but I just can't quite take it in. And I feel like a lot of the times, like when this happens, right, you just, how do you get yourself like, why is it that you can't like hear other people or seek the help? That's the first question. And then secondly, it's like, how do you take the earphones off? And I guess in this case, maybe therapy was the player here. But yeah.
Yeah. I would say, so my mom and I are very different people. I'm a very like emotionally based person. I'm a huge communicator. I'm kind of loud. I am intense.
No wonder we get along so well.
And I love her, but you know, she just is different and she doesn't really understand that aspect of me. She's kind of always told me like, calm down, like don't be so aggressive, like stop crying, you know. So I didn't really have like, it was kind of shunned, I guess. Like, this is wrong for you to feel this way. You know, coming from a divorced family, my mom was my foundation. Like, she was the one that had to be the perfect human being. And if I was not like her, I would just completely shame myself. Like, you know, I have all of this chaos around me, but she's the one thing where I'm like, okay, she is my mother. She is my only mother. She is my roots, you know, like I need to follow in her footsteps. But the thing that I've discovered in therapy is that we're very different people, and that's okay. We can still have a relationship.
You hear that?
And be different people. we're still in the process of working through this new kind of steps together. But I would say that a lot of me holding back from reaching out or speaking up is because she was constantly kind of saying, let's tone it down, let's not talk about it, or I don't want to talk about it. And so I think when I think maybe like mid-adulthood, like 20s, I did sort of, I started getting very interested in therapy, and I would have loved to have always had a therapist, but it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
I did have when my grandfather, who I was very close with, who my son is named after, when he passed away, I did seek therapy for a couple of months to help with the grief. But really, that was kind of just an excuse because I'd always wanted to go. And I had insurance covered it for a very short amount of time, and then it was just kind of out of my hands at that point. So I just was very lucky and blessed to be connected with Cora, and she, offers plans that are within my budget and something that is obtainable to me. I know that that's really difficult and hard to discover, and it's also really hard to find a therapist that you vibe with, that you feel comfortable with. Yes. So I would say, and then to answer your other question about like, how do I take those earmuffs off now?
Yeah.
They're kind of gone. Like, I was on my way here, and I was like, because I had this realization, like, I'm like, oh, a year ago I would have never taken this meeting, and it was just kind of like realizing, it was realizing that I didn't have the negative thoughts anymore. Realizing that I didn't have any anxiety about coming here. Normally I would have like not slept the whole night. Like if I would have said yes, I would have been like, oh, like I don't want to do this, So it's just kind of gone. And I mean, fingers crossed, like it's only been a couple of months. I would say maybe like 3 to 5 months where I've been in this better space with myself. So
what are you doing? I mean, yes, you're doing therapy, but there's like daily things, I'm sure, like tools. Like, does anything stand out that you're like, this is actually really helping me? Like, I'm gonna do more of this
to battle like the social anxiety.
Yeah, social anxiety. Yeah.
I think forcing myself to network more and to connect with people in real life. Go to the coffee. Say yes to the meeting. And I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it's just kind of knowing your worth and knowing you're valued and allowing myself to hear what other people have to say to me. I think also showing up online can be very scary, but also very beneficial because I get a lot of like people coming to me and being like, thank you so much. Like, I resonate with what you're saying.
You need to follow her, like, straight up. It's so funny you're saying all this because I'm like, online you seem so accessible and so friendly and so warm and welcoming. So it's just so interesting to hear that. But hey, you've done the work.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, a year ago, I wasn't doing this. Like,
exactly.
I was in my own, like,
exactly.
Isn't that funny how, like, I was doing, I started, I mean, I had been in therapy for a couple years, but last year was, like, when I was like, no, I'm going to, like, I'm going to, like, take this seriously and, like, and do the work. And so it's just funny how alignment or whatever. So, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I do want to acknowledge, too, like, you know, I've also suffered from just, like, regular anxiety.
Yeah.
I actually did. I mean, I'm not fully cured. I had a panic attack, like, 2 weeks ago, which was actually the first time. Like, so I've had anxiety attacks, but this was, like, a panic attack. It was very different.
Okay. Can you describe for people?
Yeah. So the panic attack was, I was eating dinner, and I started having the negative self-talk about eating. So, like, the negative self-talk about relationships and being involved with people, that is diminishing. But my relationship with food and, like, the conversations I have with myself about food is still a work in progress. So I was, like, having this moment where I was like, you don't need to be eating this much dinner. Like, you shouldn't be eating this. Maybe you should stop eating. Like, just like all this stuff, right? And then all of a sudden I just kind of felt drugged. And I was immediately like, told my husband, I was like, I have to go to bed right now. And he's like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. Like, and I didn't realize this was a panic attack until the next day. And I kind of was like running over it in my head.
Yeah.
I couldn't even walk up the stairs. I was trying to get my son to bed, and I couldn't brush his teeth. I couldn't do anything. I had to like lay down.
Were you like frozen in a sense, or
felt paralyzed, like
yes,
debilitated. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of laid in bed. But then I got past it quickly though, because I focused. I was laying in bed watching my husband brush my son's teeth.
Okay.
And I was just like focusing on their energy and watching them and being like, wow, you know, I'm in this vulnerable space, and here's my husband showing up and taking over, you know, one of my motherly responsibilities. You know, we're very equal in the way that we show up for the household, but like brushing the babe's teeth, that's mommy's job. But he, you know, steps in without a question, and that in itself calmed me down. But I still can't eat that pizza. It's been a few weeks.
No comment.
My husband's like, do you want the Trader Joe's pizza? I was like, I need some time.
Yeah. Too soon.
Yeah.
But I think that's a cool thing to. I mean, I think partners are an important part of the process. I mean, privileged enough to have a partner that is supportive during that time and patient and letting you heal, letting you do your thing, I think, and respecting that, I think is really cool. So that's great that you have a husband who steps in and just like, you know, that's what it is. Teamwork.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, now that you have this sort of newfound look on life, you know, and what you just did too right now, that is a tool. Like you took a moment to like say, okay, what's happening right now?
Yep.
Being present and, you know, like that is a tool that, and you know, it's so funny because I've heard about mindfulness like all my life, and I'm like, what is that? And now I'm like, actually we need it. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But back to what you were saying about your job, and now that you have all this, like, I always think about that too. I'm like, how would, now knowing what you know and being empowered as you are to show up as yourself and value yourself, like, how is there something that you would have done, I'm sure, differently, like now that you have this newfound information, if you were to go back into that office, like how do you think you would, what comes to mind, like how would you be, because it's not a matter of like doing this and that, it's like how are you going to like live, you know, like
I think a big one is, you know, I was always either not invited to the meeting or invited to take notes in the meeting.
Okay.
Right? Two really valuable options.
Yes, they are.
I think I would have maybe come to the meeting with like creative ideas, even if I wasn't asked to.
Because why? What is that? How is that being true to yourself by doing that? What is it?
Because that's like the path that I want to lead. Like I like to be a strategist. I like to be Wayfinder.
Can you explain what a Wayfinder by the way?
So like showing up, like seeing something as a whole and saying this is the best way of going about it. So like taking, or like a person and saying like, these are your gifts and this is what I think you need to do with them. This is the project and this is the path I think we need to take in order for it to be most successful. I think that, you know, I would have probably, if I was in that office now, asked for more opportunities, said, can I do this project? Or maybe like make up a project. You know, I got to a place where I was in an office and I was working like really working maybe like 3 or 4 hours a day. And the rest of the time I'm like, what's going on? You know, I'm twiddling my thumbs. Right. Like no one's giving me work. No one's giving me opportunity. No one's inviting me to the meeting. Well, I need to just invite myself to the meeting. And I said this in a reel recently. I'm like, you know, I was never invited to be a manager. I was never promoted to manager. So I just made myself the CEO instead.
I love that.
You know,
I mean, yeah.
Create the opportunity for myself.
Yes.
So I think
like
that.
I like that.
Yeah, I think just taking that initiative and trusting myself. Mm-hmm. Because if you stand in yourself or you sit in your chair, like I was telling you about.
That's a good segue.
Yes.
Sit in your chair. Go on.
So,
your throne, rather, right?
Yes. So my therapist, Cora, she talks about standing in your ground and standing in your like truth and like, what's the best? You can edit this, right?
What is it? Sitting in your
throne. Think of a really beautiful chair that's your chair, right? So like for me, it's a big velvet royal blue cushy like throne chair. When I am feeling insecure about my decisions or my opinions, I mentally picture myself in my chair and just, I'm going to stay in my chair. This is how I feel about this. This is how I'm showing up. This is the idea I have, and I am standing by myself, in my chair.
Love it.
So, yeah, I think when you show up that way in environments, people take you more seriously. So it's kind of that spiral thing that we were talking about.
Yes.
You're not believing in yourself, thus no one's believing in you.
You see that?
And
I think it does relate back to anxiety. Like for me, when I think about this throne, a lot of my anxiety comes from, insecurity, not being enough, this and that. And when you get on that throne, I don't know if this even makes sense or if it correlates, but I am starting to understand that we all have a voice and it's okay to use it and it's okay to think for yourself. And that doesn't mean that you can't, because I spent a lot of time, my life, trusting others and hearing what people had to say, but being kind of pulled in all these directions. And I'm and now I'm kind of settling into my throne and saying, I have something to say too. I have an opinion and it's okay for me to own it and say it. And I think part of my anxiety is worried about what people will say and think. And I think what's helping me with this idea of the throne is it's the anxiety will come to, I want to welcome the anxiety to serve me, not to put, bring me down or get me down. I think it's trying to really see my anxiety as a protection, as my ally, in my journey.
Yeah, I like that.
Because then it's it should be there to protect you, but it shouldn't be there to tear you down. And a lot of it is that self-talk. You hit the mark. It's we can do a lot of, even when you were talking right now about how you were talking to yourself, I'm oh my God, but then I'm girl, I do that too. I'm who am I saying? What am I saying? But then to hear someone, to see someone else, I feel it really resonates with me, and it also gives me perspective of damn, I talk to myself like that too sometimes, and that's not cool. That is not cool.
Yeah. And it's, it's interesting you're talking about letting the anxiety be an ally. It's kind of a message, hey, I'm triggered by something. Let's figure out what that is so that I can heal it and get past it.
Yes.
And, I kind of discussed my panic attack, but I've had 3 major anxiety attacks, and those look very different for me. They include vomiting, and nausea, dizziness. So I've had 3 major ones, and they were all around moving. So when I first moved to college, I had one when I first moved into my last townhouse with my husband, which is interesting because it ended up being not a good place to live. I think I kind of knew, in the first week I knew, and I had 2 anxiety attacks in that townhouse and 1 in college, and I would get into a full-on body sweat, throwing up in the bathtub, just shaking, couldn't even walk, just completely debilitated again, but in a different way than the panic attack. So
wow,
it's funny because someone gave me the advice of okay, think about what's bothering you and then create a solution and then go and then move forward. Actually, you know what? Cut the bullshit. It was my mom.
Plot twist. That's how that comes.
Yeah. So she just functions differently.
Wait, so what is? Can we dissect that for a
Yeah.
minute? Because it's that sounds great, practical.
Right.
But why does that not work when it comes to emotions and feelings?
Because you're already anxious about the thing and having to create a solution to your problem when the problem is already giving you anxiety, and then you're thinking about a solution. No, it's not the time.
You can't do that. That's the issue.
You just need to literally evaporate everything from your mind.
Yes.
And just focus on calming down and think about nothing.
Love that.
Yes. And now and then once you to get out of the attack, right? To get out of the attack. And then when you're out of it and you're feeling better, okay, what triggered this? what's going on.
Yes.
Now let's deal with that in real time so that anxiety attack doesn't happen again.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure the more that you practice that, it comes naturally to you, I'm assuming, right? Because that's the whole...
Yeah. Now I can pinpoint, like, I can pinpoint it sooner, right? So, like, you feel it at the birth of
Inception,
it. Inception, thank you. So, like, I'll be like, okay, I'm feeling a little off today. What's going on? And then, like, just being like, all right, this is it. And then, like, being like...
Yes.
You know, to my husband, I didn't like when you did this, and now it's causing me to create all, you know what I mean? Like, and and just being able to pinpoint it, like, I'm not attacking you, I'm not telling you, like, that you're the problem. I'm telling you that I'm triggered.
Like, this is happening.
Yeah, and so just kind of, the more, my therapist says, once you see things, you can't unsee them. So, like, once you're able to recognize your triggers, recognize your anxiety, you can't unsee it. It's always going to be there, and you're only going to wake up to more of it over time.
And it's funny timing. I feel like what I try to share also in this blog, right, is that, like, some people are going to be in different stages, and for me, like, therapy and putting the effort and trying to figure out who I am and why I am, like, it takes time. And so, yeah, this year there are moments where I, you know, slip up in terms of my, you know, behavior, but then I'm so aware of it.
Yep,
right? It's
yep,
that thing that you're talking about. It's like, then now I'm like, oh, wow, like, okay, well, let's get back to it, you know?
Right.
And so recently there was a moment where I woke up and I was like, all right, I'm feeling that anxiety, right? And I was like, and I actually thought about it. I thought, okay, there are two ways of going about today. I was like, I can go the way I used to go, which is not good, right? And now that I've seen what that path looks like, I'm like, I don't know if that sounds so appealing. And then I'm like, but I know.
Right.
But now I've done these other tools, and now it leads me in this path. And so I actually had a moment where I could, like, make the decision versus just sort of, like, just jumping into, like, whatever felt right. It's like really thinking about it, being intentional, and being like, all right. And so what I did is I actually just spent an hour, like, kind of what you were saying, where thinking, just kind of like not rushing into the day and just really taking a moment. And the old me would have been like, no, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I want to be good.
Yeah, I don't gotta go.
I don't gotta go.
I don't gotta go.
I like that.
You
Hashtag
don't.
I don't gotta go.
Absolutely.
And then after that hour, it's like I slowly smoothed into it. And I was like, holy moly. Like, I was like, okay, Jackie, like, this is working. I can do it.
Yep. And, you know, I think it's really interesting. I hear this said a lot. Like, people are like, well, why do I got to talk about it? Why do I got to hash it out? Why do I got to relive it?
Oh, okay.
And the point of it is to let it have less control over you. The moment that you speak it out loud to somebody, it has no more control over you. I kind of touched on, like, my eating, my relationship with eating, and I have struggled from, like, emotional support eating. And the moment that I talk to my husband about it, like, I talk to my therapist, that's one thing. And this is what I said this in an email, a very bold email to my entire family one time. I said, like, because it was very, my uncle had a friend who committed suicide, and he sent an email, and he was like, I just want to make sure you guys are all talking to me and talking to each other and blah, blah, and, or talking to someone. And I said, and that kind of was a light bulb moment for me. And I said, you know, I love you guys, and therapy is great, but that's the easy part. Therapy is the easy part. It's talking to the people that you love the most. That's the really hard part. Like, showing up and being like, I'm imperfect. I've been hiding this from you. I think you're going to judge me, and showing up anyways and saying all those things. My husband was like, okay. What's the big deal? He's like, all right, like, we'll work on it. And it's like, I'm like, I've been hiding this from you. He's like, I've seen you in those spaces. I see you. You know, he's like, I see you and I love you.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I said in that email. I was like, show up in the hard moments for the people you love the most and say the really hard things, because you'll be surprised at how much love you're just going to get back. You know? And if you don't, then throw them away.
No, I mean, that's the vulnerability part.
Yeah.
I think it's that vulnerability. And that is being vulnerable. It's like trusting the other person to be like, hey, I'm going to tell you how I really feel or what this really does for me so that
Yeah.
we can build on this, heal from this. And I've been trying to do more of that too. And my therapist tells me, my sister jokes with me all the time now, by the way, just sidetracking her, but she's always like, oh, Jackie's in therapy. Like she's doing like just mundane things. And I'm like, my therapist told me you should water those plants. I hear it's really good for them. That's simple.
My therapist told me to change the channel.
Yeah.
She called. She told me that chicken's for dinner, not steak.
There you go.
No, I know. I think people get annoyed with me too because I'm constantly throwing that out there too.
But you know what?
But I don't care.
I don't care because I'm like, I'm so much happier. So
Yeah,
like,
and we got to normalize it for other people.
Yeah.
Someone out there is going to hear you say, oh, Jackie goes to therapy. Like, oh, wow. Like, maybe I should pull the trigger on that, you know?
Yeah, so, yeah, for sure. And my therapist was like, you know, I was like, hey, I did it with my mom, and it worked. I feel like so much like better. Like, it's
yeah.
This is cool. And she's like, you know, they're just trying to, they're just, you know, your family for the most part, or people in your life, they want to just help you.
Yeah.
That's really what it is, and you just got to figure out how to meet them there,
yeah.
meet each other there. Because,
yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a good way of looking at it. So yeah, I'm definitely in agreement, and I'm glad that you're speaking out. And we talked about this. It's like there's always got to be somebody in the family that has to be the person to move generational, you know,
fix the generational trauma.
Yeah, move it forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've kind of like started the process with my mom, like the healing process.
Yes.
And in our first. She called it a session because she started crying about something that she's been kind of holding back on. And she's like, how much do I owe you for this?
I love that she's being funny about it.
Well, she's hilarious.
Oh.
She's hilarious. Yeah, no, she's, you know, and so I think... I
was going to ask you, how much did you charge her for? Just kidding.
I did pay for her lunch. So in my session with my mother... you know, she started admitting things to me that she's never like said out loud to anybody, like about her mother and her family. And then like, I know things about like my grandma and her family and my grandpa and his family. And so it's just like, it trickles. And like with the trickle, there's so much avoidance. Mm-hmm. And I think millennials and Gen Z, a lot of us are really waking up to this idea of, okay, generational trauma is a thing. It is passed down in birth. Like, this is real. I am holding on to my great-grandmother's, you know, sadness or whatever it may be. And I need to stand up and take control over that and fix it because I don't want to pass that down to my son.
Can we break down visually, like, why that is that you are like, so people can understand? I feel like you'll be able to articulate it very well.
Maybe.
This idea, teach people about like some people are gonna be like, what, my grandma, how is that even possible? Like, so why is that?
Well, I mean, so there's kind of like the woo-woo aspect of it as like, it's in our DNA, it's going through like the birth canal, like whatever. It's in the juices of the womb, yes. Right? Do what you will with that information. But, you know, technically or, you know, physically speaking, it's how we parent, right? So my mother, for example, it's so funny because I was telling you earlier in this session how she, or this session, I was telling you earlier in our chat that she, when I was, you know, younger, like it was a lot of like, calm down, stop being so aggressive, stop being so loud. And when I was talking to her, this was like maybe 2 weeks ago that we just started this kind of journey together. Nice. And she was like, you know, my mom was always telling me to be quiet, to calm down. And I was like, oh my God, sounds familiar.
Literally.
You know? Yeah. So it's just, you don't even recognize, if you're not taking the time to see it and recognize, these things are like, and I'm sure my grandma's mom was telling her to be quiet and her mom was telling her to be quiet, you know? And so.
I feel like, okay, you're giving me a lot to bring home with because that is so like, it just feels so, you know, people who have a close relationship with their mother. It's like, I'm sure like you probably saw your mom in a way you've never seen her before, right? Like, yes. You're just like, whoa, like who is this person? Like,
yes.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
and she's in a very vulnerable space because she just retired and she does not feel good about it. So she's in an extremely vulnerable space in her life. And now I'm coming to her and being like, hey, Mom, we're going to start a new relationship. I'm going to ask you a lot of really tricky questions and you're going to feel uncomfortable and you might cry.
I mean, maybe it's good timing. You know?
Yeah,
maybe
no, I think it is.
Be the person to...
Yeah, I think it is good timing. And, you know, because I'm over here building up resentment towards her and she doesn't even see it. Like, I was like, Mom, I didn't talk to you for weeks because you told me not to do XYZ. And she's like, I didn't even, like, read that on you. Like, I didn't even notice that was happening. Crazy. And then it was like this whole silly thing where she's like, oh, I told you not to go to that because of XYZ. And I'm like, why'd you lie? Like, that's a better reason, you know, like... Oh, my goodness. So it's just, yeah, it's just like, let's just be honest. Let's just be real. Isn't that a song?
It is. Oh, let's be honest. Yeah, it is. Okay, so then that's like, thank you for sharing what that looks like and what it is. So now you're talking about your son. So how do you, as a mother, for any mothers out there, like what helps you kind of work through that? And
I just let him be who he wants to be, you know. There's a lot of doctor interference in the modern day with children. Why doesn't he say this many words? Why doesn't he do this or that? He needs to be doing this at this stage. There's this book of development, and we're not looking at our children as human beings, and that all have different fingerprints, right? Literally. And I accept him, and I accept his stages of development for whatever it is that he wants. Like, I let him tell me to an extent. Yeah. Like, obviously, like, I'm going to tell him certain things. But I watch his behavior and I feel into who he is. And I do my best to, like, let him go at his speed. And he is fast. He's fast. But, yeah, you know, and I think, and I even look back on it, like, he's 3.5. And I'll go back like a year ago and look at a scenario where someone was telling me XYZ and I was like, no, this is how it needs to be. And I'm like, I was right. Like, I am his mother, you know? I am his mother. And like, there can be a million experts and doctors in the world, but at the end of the day, like, we were one being for a very long time. Like, I understand what my son needs. You know, and like, he's in school, he has a ton of teachers, and I look to them for guidance and all of that. And I do respect, there's a handful of teachers and doctors that I do respect their opinion. But at the end of the day, I always take into consideration like the humanity of it. Like, these are children, not robots. They're not an algorithm. They're not programmed to do certain things or act a certain way. Like, they are people. And if we start to control our children's characteristics, personalities, behaviors, like from day one, like, just think about how much that's going to affect them over time. Restriction, you know, like me being told to be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. And then I'm not talking, you know?
I was thinking about Carly in that office, in that room.
Right.
I mean, like, your son one day will be in a room, in a place where it's like, how do you want him to feel? How do you want him to carry himself? And so I think you're already laying down that cool foundation of like...
And he is just like so innately autonomous, like already. Aww. And that's something like I work with my therapist on too, is she's like, he is like a powerhouse. Like, don't diminish that. Because we're born with these things, right? And then they go away.
That's a great segue, because we've talked about this when we met for coffee, about this idea of like, why is it that we're told, like, it's like our, you know, as my therapist says, the role self and your true self.
Right.
And we take on this role self because the world is like shoving themselves in you, and you're just like, oh, I guess where's Carly? Like,
I don't know.
But now this is Carly. Like, I do see this is Carly. Yeah. And I remember when we had that coffee, I told Anna too, I was like, something about you that I was like, this is a genuine person, is when we were talking, you gave me this like eye contact. Like, that was like,
I've had to work on that.
No, you did it.
I've had to work on that.
No, but you did it. I was like, I don't know what it was, but maybe for me the visual cue was just like you were like, I felt like you really were like listening to me, like like hearing me out, and it was just like kind of like, oh my god, like this is cool. Like when you think about connecting with people, it's like, I was like, okay, like, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I'm going with that, but that
No,
was, like,
I mean, that's actually a very good point, because that's like another thing that, like, I used to be horrible at eye contact, and now I try to do it more. And it's funny because now I can spot the person who's uncomfortable, you know?
Okay.
Like, for example, I go to this coffee shop like several times a week, and, you know, the gals and guys that work there, the baristas, they are, you know, they're much younger and, you know, like a little uncomfortable maybe. And I'm just kind of like show up, I'm like loud, you know, and I'm looking at them in the eye, and they're kind of like, where do I look?
Anyway.
Yeah. And it's like, now it's like, I can't unsee it, you know? Like, I'm like, I see you doing what I used to do, you know?
What is it about then that you can do it now? What is it that you feel you feel confident, or I don't know, what is it?
I just, honestly, I think it made me uncomfortable to be uncomfortable making eye contact. So then I was like, I need to just make eye contact. Like, I was like, I need to just work on this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's working for you. So, so yeah, the true self and role self, you're talking about how, like, why does that happen? And it's interesting because, you know, me doing this right now with you is like, this is something that, like, 10-year-old Jackie would have done. Yeah. Like, I'm the girl that was with the camera, like, making my cousins, like, be so my, cute. You know, I would do my little talk show with my cousins and stuff. And so for me, it was just, like, expressing myself and working with people to put something together, do a project. Like, that was always very exciting for me. And then over time, you know, you're, like you said, the voice, the you that is you, intrinsically you, starts to kind of get smaller. And the world sort of takes over, which, you know, I hate the word adulting because it's like, it's had this sort of negative connotation of like, we still can't have fun. We still can't be like, why not enjoy life, you know? So yeah, why do you think, what's going on?
Well, my therapist, I'm in therapy. She says it's kind of like, just a long-lived, what's the word? Conditioning. Okay, so we don't know how to human. Like, we just physically, like, we just have never been, like, nobody has the tools. Nobody knows how to do it. You know? And I was going to say, this is a little bit off track, but I want to say it. I keep thinking about when we met for coffee, and I asked you, like, what is it that you ideally would want to be doing with your life?
Okay. Oh, what did I say?
And you said,
I'm sweating. What did I say?
No, you said, I want to have my own show and I want to interview people. And I'm like, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like, amazing. And I think there was a part of you that thought you weren't.
Oh.
Like, you were like, oh, that's where I want to be. And I'm like, but you're there. Like, YouTube is TV. There is YouTube TV.
There is literally.
You know, there's literally YouTube TV. But YouTube is our TV. Social media is our TV. Like, you are doing it.
Okay, so that's very interesting that you say that, because I think there's still a part of what I'm working through is like giving myself permission to be myself, giving myself permission to own what it is that I like and what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's some of the work I still need to do for me to get to the point and be like, this is what I am doing. Yeah. So I still have to
yeah. Oh, I struggle with that too. Yeah. I mean, you know, showing up on social media and promoting my services and my offerings and things like that, I usually hone in on like my smaller services or my smaller offerings, and I don't talk about and one of my like business mentors like kind of called me out on this, because I was like, hey, like, give me a quick audit, like, what's going on? I'm having this little bit of a struggle. And she's like, and this was, and I think that I've really found like I've found a good voice on Instagram, but I think it could be elevated. TikTok is a little bit more of a struggle for me.
I feel like you're doing great on TikTok.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. But she said, I don't know what, she said, who are you talking to? And I was like, oh, well, mothers, holistic small businesses, wellness industry, women, like entrepreneurs. She's like, no, like what, like who, what do they want to buy from you? Who are you talking to, and what do they want to buy from you? And I was like, oh shit. I don't know. Like, and I'm like, I guess I focus on like my coaching services. And she's like, well, is that the main thing that you want to be selling? And I was like, ideally, no. I mean, if I get a full retainer, full service social media manager client, that's more beneficial for my business. So, but I don't believe that I can sell that.
Oh my God. No.
Okay.
No. I hope she had a good comeback for you. Okay,
She did. So it's like, it's the mindset, right?
Yes.
Like believing that you're valuable, believing that you can do it, believing that you can sell it, believing that believing that your high ticket offer is worth its price tag. Right?
Yes.
So, she just told me this like 2 days ago. I haven't figured it out yet. So I'm still working on it.
You know what? I'm proud of you for being vulnerable and being like, hey, this is, you're a badass. Like, girl, you can do anything. This woman can do anything. I'll put your information in the thing, and your therapist. I'll put her information too.
Yeah, she's got a YouTube channel. She's got beautiful videos on there, meditation stuff.
Subscribe.
Yeah, she's great.
Okay.
She's wonderful.
But thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because a lot of it is like, it's that imposter syndrome or, whatever you want to call it. And I think, but you're doing the work. Like, the more and more that you can, take ownership of who you are. And I always think, like, you can't be anything else but yourself. And that could be very freeing, I think, right? Like,
I agree.
To be like, hey, I'm not trying to be anything. I'm just being me. And I'm sitting with what makes me me. Yeah. And what my strengths are, and what I can do to help people. And I'm just going to sit with that. That's what I'm going to put out there, And for me, that feels, I just, feeling comfortable and feeling, aligned with myself. I think that helps me sort of push forward and it motivates me.
Absolutely. I think once you see that, it's easier to be yourself than to try to be somebody else.
Yes.
And I think people forget that. They're like, oh, well, I'm just going to mimic that. That's easier. They already have the outline. I'm just going to copy paste. Yeah. But everything's in here. Like, just like listen to yourself, go for a drive, listen to some music, go for a walk, like find yourself, find your inner voice, listen to it.
Ooh. Can we talk about the moving
Be
part?
your own home.
Oh, what was that? Be your own home.
Be your own home.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? The peeps out there.
You have one home, it's your body. You're always going to be with yourself, even if everyone in your family passes away all at once. You still have yourself, so you have to love yourself. You need to be able to like do things alone and thrive within your own space, and your own energy is so important. And it allows you to open yourself up to other energies and let them in when you're not doing so much work trying to be something else,
I love that.
Yeah.
This is insane, okay? Because how I met you, like, I was just thinking about that. I was like, thank you for, like, seeing something in me and wanting to reach out.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
It's, it takes people to, see something and support each other and uplift each other. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So take a chance on people. You never know. I told you when I met you, I was like, I've never met anybody, like, online, in person, like.
Oh, really?
No. Like, well, no, during the pandemic, like, I mean, I've met people online, but not, like, and then we went and saw each other in person.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, like, I was telling you about that with Emily. Like, she kind of inspired that whole thing. Because I don't really get out that much. I'm very limited in where I can go with a 3-year-old.
Right.
So I make a lot of friends online now, and I try to be very conscious of bringing that to the real world as much as I can. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Carly, this has been, wow. It has been amazing, and I feel empowered.
Me too.
Yeah? How do you feel?
I feel really good. I did. Yeah. This was easy, casual, back and forth.
Yeah.
I think we really are on the same level with a lot of stuff.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're a badass. You're a baddie.
Oh, thank you.
Like, so I look forward to continuing to get to know each other.
Absolutely. And you're going to do a live with me?
Yes.
In a few weeks. I think it's in June.
July. It's in July. We moved to
July.
I think we moved to July. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So I have a series on my Instagram under Reels. You just go to series and you can see all the lives, and hopefully you can catch Jackie's.
I mean, I hope they do catch me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. Perfect timing because the gardening is kicking up. So anyways, cheers, Carly.
Cheers.